Hello everyone and welcome to the final Lunar Observer in-depth ever. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. This is the final in-depth for the March Media big blowout bonanza that occurred in 2016. And we were really far behind, but not for much longer, because this is Rilgar, the final planet revealed in the March Madness Media big blowout bonanza. And yeah, as you can see here, this is the loading screen. Oh, the loading screen. A very nice picture of what you would expect. Notable is that the ship that has landed at the pad is actually Ratchet's starting ship, not his ranger ship. Interesting. The loading icon in the bottom right corner of the screen is also the Galactic Ranger emblem. Previous loading emblems have been the Captain Quark logo for Full Frontal Assault and the Insomniac Moon for probably a cracking time, I bet. Now this image is very interesting. Here it is Ratchet landing his ship in the GameSpot playthrough. However, they have not actually completed Ker 1 yet, so they have actually landed with Ratchet's starting ship. However, Polygon's playthrough actually did Ker 1 first off. So Ratchet is in his Ranger armor, and most notably, he is in the Ranger ship. So while the cockpit position is the same, the ship looks much sleeker and more awesome, and I love it. It is a very cool design. It is, I believe, a Class G star jumper. That doesn't mean a jumper isn't something inanimate. You know it can jump between stars, which implies, actually, a hyperspace system. This is the opening vista for Blackwater City. Again, very high potential for wallpapers. The Gadgetron vendor is actually displayed on a slope. The holographic G, however, is not. Here's a picture from GameSpot's playthrough as they make their way down the main course on the way to the hoverboard competition. And in the back left of the shot, you can see this. Honestly, this is a really bad look. It doesn't gel with the rest of the level environments very well at all. I don't like it that much. Here is a TNT crate exploding. As I explained in a previous in-depth, it's got a very prominent displacement bubble of that basically represents compressed air because of the forces of the explosion. Here's Ratchet making his way out of said building into the next area. In the distance, you can actually see the area where it's basically the section where you finish up the first half of this route and make your way onto the taxi into the downtown area. Yeah, not much else more to say really. I don't know how to describe it all that well. Here Ratchet is making his way across the pontoon, off into the distance on the left hand side of the screen. You can actually see the giant pipe that leads into the VersaTarget sec. Sorry, not the VersaTarget. There's a VersaTarget there. What am I saying? That leads into the sewer section with the Hydro Displacer in action. Also, it's worth noting that Ratchet can actually jump onto this pontoon and across to the other side without having to use the glide on the helipack. He can do it quite comfortably, actually. Beforehand, in Ratchet & Clank 1, it was very tight if you wanted to make it across this gap without the helipack. So that goes to show that Ratchet's jumping distance has improved a lot over the years. In the next sort of a compound building area, and in the corner of most of them actually, are these computer units. I don't know what they're for, but they're probably used by the robot extermination crew to help get rid of the amoeboid infestation that has likely been sicked on the city by Dr. Nefarious. Here you can see the classic bridge extending its way over to the end of the first half of this section. Unlike Ratchet & Clank 1, this bridge extension is actually much quicker than it was last time around. You're not waiting around for 10 seconds, you're waiting around for 0.10 of a second. Ha ha ha, very clever wordplay. After defeating the decontamination robots in the next section, you can see posters there, as well as strewn about the rest of the city. These are actually posters advertising the hoverboard race, and the artwork, the white posters are used for the silver cup, and the one in the back that is obscured by the other two is for the gold cup. So you have multiple different attacks of the hoverboard circuit to contend with when you get there, if you get there. Here's Ratchet in front of a wall in a particular section of the level. I can't actually tell, but much like Metropolis, as I explained last time in the Novalis in-depth, this is actually a bit of contextual environmental detail that shows that this is actually the entrance to someone's house. Again, it helps establish Blackwater City as an actual location where people live, rather than an arrangement of buildings that is sort of like the facade of a city. It is much more convincing that people live here now that there are doors and other elements of the fact that they live there, such as garage doors and mailboxes and fire hydrants and that sort of thing. In this particular image, you can actually see the specular highlight on the back of the amoeboid. Shows sort of how the texture that the amoeboids have on their skin. And in the distance, you can actually see some of the garage doors that I've mentioned. One of the garage doors that I was talking about before. When an amoeboid is killed and it splits into its next lowest stage, it actually does so as a green blob, which then morphs into the more defined look of the amoeboid subsections, which is a really nice detail. Yes, as you can see, just to the left of Ratchet's head, even the fire hydrants have neon on them. Here Ratchet is using a Versa target to get to the next area. Unlike in the original game, Ratchet doesn't actually take a taxi to the downtown area, he uses the swing shot to get there. Now, on the left hand side of the screen, you can actually see an island in the distance, which bears a striking resemblance to the original island as seen in the PS2 games. If you look sort of in the middle left of the island, there is a giant sign that is pretty much the exact same design as the 2002 taxi signpost. So it is very cool that if this is in fact the original PS2 island model, it is hilarious that it has been included now as a background object. Here is Ratchet at the vendor, and he is about to pick up the Groovatron. Unfortunately, he cannot because it costs 8,000 bolts, and he only has 6,643. One of the nice details about the Groovatron glove, though, is that if you look in the palm of Ratchet's hand, there is a circular pad with an arm that reaches back onto the Groovatron glove itself. This pad in his palm is most likely meant to be where the Groovatron orbs are generated after he tosses one, or if he is about to toss one. So again, some in-game explanation of how Ratchet gets the bombs in his hands in the first place. Also, if you look to the right of Ratchet's screen right arm, you can see that Clank's hand is fitting nicely into the slot onto the side of his torso. As I pointed out before in the movie section of this in-depth series, the Movieverse Clank has hands that can't retract his fingers, and so his hands can't actually fit into these recessed areas. One of the movie game differences that I seem to keep pointing out over and over and over again. Here's another picture of Ratchet wearing the Groovatron glove, this time from the GameSpot playthrough. It shows the Pixelizer. This close-range arm cannon fires a burst of energy that blasts enemies back in time, a time when resolution was a lot lower. But he is actually visibly equipping the Groovatron glove. It's just sort of in between transitions. The Groovatron glove description, by the way, says this weapon creates an instant dance party, making the enemies vulnerable to attack, and that is why it has been so useful over the years. Here's another view of the Groovatron glove, this time from the quote-unquote top, so you can see this giant circular blue pad thing. I'm not really sure what it is for. Probably one of the most striking Groovatron glove designs was in 2009's A Crack in Time, where on the top of the palm of the hand there was actually a semicircle disco ball orb. Here's the front view of the pixelizer. What's interesting here is that you can see the circular design pattern on the retro style CRT monitor. This circular design pattern is actually the same pattern that the proton drum projects underneath one of the drums. That pink one that I pointed out in the Kerwan playthrough during the train section near the end. Here, as GameSpot are quitting out of the vendor menu, you can see the rear of the pixelizer, sort of how it fits over Ratchet's hand, in a way that is very similar to the HK-22 gun from Going Commando. And here's the upgrade tree for Raritanium mods on the Groovatron. The weapon stats you can improve are bonus bolts, area of effect, and vulnerability. The vulnerability stat is actually a debuff that applies to enemies that are dancing. If an enemy is dancing, they get the vulnerability debuff that basically increases the damage of attacks that Ratchet uses on that enemy that makes them easier to kill. This is actually a hugely beneficial upgrade because it encourages you to keep using the Groovatron because enemies will take more damage with each shot, and therefore you will be saving ammo. So the Groovatron feels like a weapon that you will be using for the entirety of the game, and that is very, very cool. Here is one of the Groovatron's mystery upgrades that has just been unlocked: nesting balls. Backup Groovatrons are stacked inside each other to enable even more ammo to be carried. Basically, that means that the ammo count has been increased. Whoop-de-doo! Very helpful, because we only have like 4 of them, really. So having more is cool. Here's Ratchet looking down to the, I always called this the street brawl alley, sort of where the two forces of the amoeboids and the decontamination guys collide. What you'll be able to see sort of at the top center of the screen is an elevated area with crates of Raritanium, which is very similar to the 2002 game, where you had to ride onto sewage pipe cap things. I forget what they're called, but you know what I'm talking about. You can see 2 of them on the street there. They would sort of shoot up via hot air. You can't do that this time around, but the placement of the 2 sewer cap manhole covers. They're called manhole covers. Jesus, you idiot. Kebabs. You're so dumb. The manhole covers will be shot up out of the air by hot gas and fumes and stuff. Hot gas fumes? That doesn't sound very nice at all. That sounds like Helga's bratwurst party. To get up there. However, this time around you can't actually do it. However, there is another method by which you can get there. Here Ratchet is going along the brawl alley that I was talking about. What's interesting with the subtitles here is that the Blackwater, I don't know if it's the mayor or just some random announcer guy. He says that the AI of the exterminators doesn't let them distinguish between trespassers and locals, so it's probably best to stay indoors. So that is another reason why the exterminators, and I'm not talking about the Dread Zone exterminators, sorry Tara, are attacking Ratchet. In the original game, it was explained that the exterminators were actually attacking Ratchet because they thought he was vermin by the virtue of him being covered in fur, which was actually a legitimate excuse at the time because Ratchet was the only character with fur except for the Blagian scientists. And here the Groovatron is leveled up to level 2, and it's the amount of time it stays out on the field making people dance has been increased by 15%. Hooray! Here's a really good look at one of the disco light triangular projection patterns that the Groovatron has done. And here you have a completed set of OmniWrench holo cards. Now, as I pointed out before, the OmniWrench 8000 has mistakenly got the picture of the OmniWrench Millennium 12 from Quest for Booty onwards. The Millennium 12 seems to justify this change by having blue electricity spark between the wrench head, probably because of the kinetic tether, but as I've established before, the OmniWrench 8000 never looked like the Millennium 12. It looked like the wrench from Ratchet and Clank 1, but PS3ified. Anyway, one of the buffs of getting a full set for the OmniWrench is that Ratchet's melee damage has now been doubled. It has gotten 100% more damage applied to it. So that is a good reason to collect cards for all you wrench ninjas out there. Here's a picture of another holo card set that has been completed, the Fusion Grenade. It has been completed with the Fusion Grenade, the Bouncer, and the B6 Obliterator set. And apparently, according to this, when you complete a holo card set for weapons, it unlocks the Omega variant of the Fusion Bomb for you to purchase in Challenge Mode. The description at the bottom of the screen is also quite funny. Completing holo card sets gets you the eternal admiration of collectors across the galaxy, and some enhancements to your equipment. But really, it's all about the collector cred. Now this particular shot shows some of the extra detailing that Insomniac have applied again to Blackwater City to make it feel like an actual city, because this is actually a storefront for mechanics. You can see various gears and toolboxes and screwdrivers on display in the stands. Another one of the particular storefronts is actually a fish market. You can see in one of the windows one of the orange Blarg Pokitaru fish that, you fight on Pokitaru. Here Ratchet is inside the arena cave, again another sort of turf war area between the exterminators and the amoeboids. Where you also see is a swingshot target, and this I think will allow for easy access to take you over to the other side of the arena should you want to do so. Beforehand, if you wanted to do that, you would actually have to walk around the entire perimeter to get there. Here is the controls menu as shown in the GameSpot playthrough. The various options are to be expected. The control types you can pick from are normal and lock strafe. There is also an auto-aim option which allows you to turn on and off the Tools of Destruction style auto-aim system. There is also a flip L1, L2 and R1, R2 option. What this does is that it flips the two controls so that L2 is now doing what L1 used to do. This is very important for long-time players or those who have very particular preferences, because the PS4 game actually has fire set to R2 and crouch set to L2, I believe. What this means is this is a change from the PS3 games where fire was actually R1. And if you are as used to that as I was when I was playing at PSX, this will be very quickly confusing. So flicking on this option will just ease the teething pains of playing the PS4 game for the first time, because they changed the controls again. Here Ratchet is standing inside the hollow maze of Blackwater City, as we've seen before. This is really just a really pretty screenshot, which is my way of saying I completely forgot why I took this picture. But you can see a really good reflection of the TNT crate in the floor to Ratchet's right. Well, on screen right of Ratchet, it would be on his left. And behind him, it's behind you, Ratchet, look out! And here Ratchet has stepped on a pad, deactivating one of the hollow screens. But it is the one on the left, not the one in front of Ratchet where the gold bolt is. This is a very clear reference to the original Ratchet and Clank. And in fact, in the original Ratchet and Clank, this button was in fact broken and you couldn't get in there. You had to find a different way to get through. And yeah. Fusion Grenade leveled up to level 3 plus 20% damage. I'm pretty sure we've already covered this. Why did I include this? You city person kebabs. Now this particular collector card is interesting because it is the unlock for Zircon Jr. Except this is another instance of the trading card picture being wrong. That is not Zircon Jr. That is actually the Zircon the Destroyer model from A Crack in Time. Zircon Jr. was more of a babyfied version of the existing Mr. Zircon. So, yeah, get on that, Insomniac. Change the card pictures before the release, hopefully. I'd really love it if you did, because I don't want another situation like Up Your Arsenal's liquid nitrogen gun, where the gun was shown upside down in the picture. And here is Ratchet stepping on another pad button, and this is actually a brand new button that completely deactivates the laser wall maze except for the area around the gold bolt, as this polygon player will discover to his shock and horror. This is very helpful if you are making multiple passes at going for the gold bolt, because you no longer have to navigate the maze to get to the other side, you just have to walk through, which is much easier. Here Ratchet is making his way up this advertising billboard, and this is the new way to get on top of the maze to get to the maze gold bolt. Instead of going up to an elevated area to continue like in Ratchet and Clank 1, that doesn't happen anymore, so the new method had to be included to get up to the top of the maze. You still have to go to an elevated area, but it is no longer done by standing on top of a manhole cover to shoot you up and then you turn around and jump over to the top of the maze. Instead, you climb these advertising boards to get up there instead. And here's the polygon player nervously walking his way along the top of the maze. Very classic stuff. In the original game, to the left of the screenshot, you could actually see the hoverboard track over the wall. I'm not sure if that is the case this time around. Here Ratchet is making his way over to the hoverboard competition. It seems like the party has long since expired, but nevertheless, the event is still being held, apparently in just a few minutes. On the left hand wall you can see posters for, from left to right, the bronze, gold and silver hoverboard cups. Here Ratchet makes his way into one of the side rooms with crates in them, and to make it more visually interesting, this particular room at least, we never got a chance to see the others, has now been opened up so that it is a balcony so you can see the rest of the city. We didn't get a good look in this playthrough by Polygon, I believe it was, but yeah, I know I'll certainly be seeing what bits of the level I can see from out this balcony when I get my hands on the game. On the left hand side you can obviously see a piece of art for Skid McMarx. This is the same artwork render that is used for Skid McMarx's holo card that you can pick up at random. Here is a really fine picture of the brand new Hover Girl. Her costume looks really good. Like most Ratchet and Clank characters, her design is so good now. I mean, seriously you guys, you're doing brilliantly with this stuff. Here's the menu selection for the various hoverboard cups, much like the Destructopalooza and the Agorian Battleplex. You can compete in different cups. Apparently, we never got to see this in action, but apparently the different Rilgar racing cups increase difficulty by way of putting more TNT crates onto the course. You get pillar crates, which are somewhat easy to avoid, and then you have sort of hurdles crates that are laid across the ground that you have to jump over. So each one is progressively more difficult to complete. And here Ratchet is at the starting line. You can see a lot of wet weather effects in play. And if you look onto the wings of Ratchet's hoverboard, you can't actually see the red rockets that were on the hoverboard when Skid gave it to him. In fact, you can't see those red rockets on any of the hoverboards. And, in a new detail, all of the hoverboarders in the race are completely different. Beforehand, in Ratchet & Clank 1, they were all basically Skid clones, which would probably explain why he seems to keep showing up despite sustaining horrific injuries due to his exploits that I've made up just now. Also, in the crowd, you'll notice that these are actually the murderous testing bots that Ratchet previously had to face in the Velden Galactic Ranger tryout arena. On the left hand side of the screen you can see the position, the lap and the controls. So you accelerate with R2, you boost with L2, jump with X, and now you use the right stick to trick in mid-air. So you basically, instead of holding down a shoulder button like in SSX and then using the right stick to rotate, now you just use the right stick to rotate in effect. And here Ratchet is about to jump off a ramp. Now, in the other media, and in this particular instance, Kaisel Plateau is pronounced incorrectly. It is pronounced as Kizel Plateau. That doesn't sound as cool, in my opinion. I prefer Kaisel Plateau, and I shall refer to it as such despite this change in pronunciation. Oh, also, at the top of the screen, you can see 3 boost meters. They're divided up into sections, and what I believe this means is that Ratchet needs to acquire a certain amount of boost before he can use some. So, 1 container, 2 container, 3 containers. I'm not sure if you can use it all at once though, or if this is just a fancy way of displaying one long boost meter. I haven't figured that out. The screenshot really shows the lighting effects on the edge of the course, how there are spotlights underneath the course pointing up at the trees, giving this really, really cool lighting effect. It's worth noting, as I guessed during the game for the game's original reveal trailer, that the hoverboard course is basically exactly the same. However, it is now much larger because Ratchet and Clank travel much faster while they're hoverboarding. Now the next pair of images are showing the effects of the fisheye lens. When Ratchet boosts, the camera zooms out to create a fisheye effect. And high-paced racing games such as Burnout and SSX on Tour, I believe, also use a fisheye effect to make you feel like you're going faster than you really are, because with a fisheye effect, the distance becomes further away for objects in the center of the screen, so when they come past the camera, they do so at what you perceive to be a higher rate. But in the next image, you'll see that Ratchet is barely over the finish line, and yet everything feels much closer. How cool is that? Here's the final standings of the hoverboard intergalactic I forget the name. It's a hoverboard race and Ratchet wins, so that's what's important. All the races are different, although the people in second and third place are only slightly different. The one in third had a helmet on, but unfortunately he couldn't see, which is why the guy who didn't have a helmet came in second, I bet. What's also interesting is that the various stands only ever have one type of character in them. The one on the left and right sides of the screen contain only Tharpods and Fongoids, whereas the ones on the back and immediately behind the stands in the center only contain testing bots. Squishy and robot segregation? And actually, what I'm noticing just now is that this sort of standing section is done in the middle of the course, because you can see the track behind the, just in the background on the right hand side of the screen. And here we have a picture from Inside Gaming's playthrough with Ratchet winning the Gold Cup of the Hoverboard Championship. As is probably obvious, he's won a holo card, and the specific card that he is holding up is a Rhino holo card. We'll be getting to that later at the end of this segment, but needless to say, the Rhino holo cards are basically the 2016 version of the holo plans from the Future Saga and into the Nexus. And here is a full body version of the Hovercon Racing Girl. Again, a very, very cool character design. And here's the backside, showing a little bit more of that design. As pointed out by GameSpot, she appears to have a headdress that is perfectly molded around her head spikes. And here is the results screen that pops up after you finish a race. In this particular race, Ratchet has beaten Victor Equinox, Apollo Hicks, Chester St. Cloud, Griff Blastex, and Erwin Littleton. Erwin Littleton did exceptionally poorly, finishing at 3 minutes 5 seconds and 446 milliseconds, which I believe was my time when I first completed the Hovercon Intergalactic Hoverboard competition way back when I first played the game. Now this image shows a side view of the taxi that I've pointed out in the Ker 1 demo beforehand, and you can see the one above it for the end of the sewage pipe section that we'll be covering in a moment. And here is Ratchet making his way over to the next section, the sewer area. He is actually letting go of the swing shot and is about to land on the pontoon, which is now oriented to be parallel with the direction he's going, rather than sideways, which makes landings a little bit more easy for you to do. Now, if at the closest to camera, you can see this little grey circular object that is attached to the swing shot cable. This is actually the gripper of the sort of like the gripper claw grappling hook sort of end of Ratchet's screenshot, and this appearance is actually completely accurate to how it appears in the movie, because we know what this looks like from previous movie trailers. Here Ratchet is in the Blackwater City sewers. The design of the sewer area is now much more plain and utilitarian. It is not as visually interesting as the original pipe-infested waterworks that from last time, but it makes sense for a series of sewers that people don't visit all that often. What's also new is the well, I call them lurker sharks. It's the lurker sharks mechanic. You have to drain the pool and kill the sharks before you can make your way forward. But Ratchet's jump height isn't enough to clear this area with the sharks in it. Sorry, with the water risen. He has to do it sort of on foot with the water retracted, so that's the same. But the lurker shark mechanic is actually taken from Umbrus, and from all looks of the well, from what we know about the story so far, Umbrus doesn't feature, so it makes sense to move that mechanic to the other main Hydra Displacer set piece, which is the Blackwater City sewers, so that players still get that. And here is one of the lurker sharks right now going, "Oh no, where did all the water go?" Here is Ratchet in the next reservoir pool place, making his way over to one of the pipes. And this is a drastic change to the ladder that takes him back up to the Hydro Hydro Faucet. Instead of being a block with yellow ladders, it is now a series of tubes or containers with a neon ladder leading up to the top instead. Here's Ratchet in the room after having cleared the pipe of grates that would have normally prevented his passage. The lighting effects of the fan and the grate above him are really, really cool and very sewage-like. Well, sewer-like. Here's the camera underwater, and what's interesting is that Ratchet is still standing sort of above water, but when the camera is placed underwater, the audio actually changes the suit. It becomes much more muffled, and you hear sort of ambient sound effects of water flowing around the camera's hypothetical microphone. Now the next pair of shots show a very interesting detail that helps with the readability of a Hydro Faucet. In Ratchet and Clank 1, a Hydro Faucet would pop up if you needed to suck water out in this sort of 45-degree bend that you see here, and then it would retract into the ground for when Ratchet needed to pump water back in by slamming it into the ground. That no longer happens, so Insomniac needed to come up with a new visual tell as to whether the pipe is drain or fill. Now here, Ratchet is draining. Nope, he's not draining. Ratchet is filling up the pipe with water, and what you'll see is the platform around him with the purple frame is dry. However, in this frame, after Ratchet has filled it up, the purple frame is now containing a section of water because the pipe is so full it is actually leaking water into the area where Ratchet's standing. So that is how you are able to tell whether you need to suck up water. It's how you are able to tell where, if the water is present around the Hydro Faucet, then interacting with said faucet will cause you to drain the pool. However, if it is dry, you will fill it up. Now this next picture is Ratchet as he is about to enter the rising water area. But with the pyrositor pointed at the screen, you can actually see that it has a little small flame on the inside, creating a lens flare on the camera lens. The pipe sections in the Blackwater City pipes are much more reminiscent of the Aquato sewer section from Up Your Arsenal, which is a cool little visual nod or coincidence. Here's Ratchet in the Rising Water section. These platforms here, numbering now 4, are also much more aligned with the center of the hallway than they were the first time around. This makes it more intuitive for you to navigate them. Before, by being placed on the left hand side of the area, it made it more awkward to traverse and you were more likely to fall off and waste time, and were therefore more likely to drown at the end. Here's a look underwater, albeit, at the new Rising Water section visual style, which is different actually from the Hydro Displacer section that we saw earlier. It is very much stone-like, but still futuristic in the shape of the bricks. In this particular screenshot, you can see that there is a white wave water effect being applied to the edge of the water as it makes contact with the edge of the room. This is a nice way to tell what the dimensions of the room are, and it's just plain a detail that wasn't present in any previous games, so I'm putting it out there, so deal with it. Now there is also a change for the end of the sewage section. Instead of just getting up onto a ramp after getting to the end, you now must go through a final ascent to try and catch up with the rising water. This is one of the reasons why I believe the Hydro Displacer is something that you will start the game with as soon as you meet Clank, because this particular player was only able to make it with the Hydro Displacer. They had like 2% air left when they finally emerged at the surface, so if he hadn't had the Hydro Pack, it would have been much more difficult to complete this section. One of the particular issues that I have with this though is that the surface of the water is not that easy to identify. When the polygon player of this video that I took the screenshot from actually reached the surface, I couldn't actually tell, and I thought that he had actually drowned and the drowning animation had yet to kick in. So yeah, that was one of the things I had when I was watching the video. But that's not all. In addition to that rising final ascent section of the escape pipe, you now have this extra section where the water is fully risen, but Ratchet still has to make his way through a little bit more of the sewer to get to the end. The exit elevator is on the far end of the room there. Below, there are actually a bunch of TNT crates that you have to blow up, much like on Pugitaru in the original game, and in the new version if I recall correctly. In this screenshot you can see Ratchet swimming underwater trying to get the TNT crate to explode the steel crates. What's interesting about these steel crates is the fact that they actually have cyan lights on the top. This is how the player is supposed to tell that the crates are there to begin with from above the water's surface, in addition to the TNT crates, so that makes them easier to spot in this situation. I think that's a very clever design idea. Here Ratchet is in the Blackwater market, so instead of meeting Captain Quark in his trailer and getting coordinates to Umbrus, instead you now have this shady, sort of shifty looking dude who is the new version of the shady salesman, although I don't believe he's the same character because his sort of mood and tone is distinctly different from before. As you can see here, he's still got a leather jacket, but he looks a bit younger. He looks more like I don't know, I just call him like a freak geek. He doesn't look like, he doesn't feel as adult as the shady salesman who you can get the Rhino and the Levitator from. A more wider view. In this one you can actually notice that the guy has the Rhino logo on the front of his shirt, the big explosion that you see on your quick select. This has actually been the icon for Rhinos since Tools of Destruction, and no wait, it's been in use since Up Your Arsenal. I'm so sorry, it's been around since 2004. How cool is that for heritage? Another view of the Freak Geek, as I call him, and the Trespasser, which is basically a high-resolution version of the Infiltrator, except it's painted grey and red instead of green and gold, I believe the original one was. There's also a continuity error. The glow on the ends of the Trespasser are blue here, but in the Kerwan video that Captain Quark shows to Ratchet, it's actually glowing green. Here is Ratchet holding the Infiltrator Trespasser, and another view sort of showing the front ends of it, which are also glowing. Now, what was surprising to me was that Ratchet was able to actually walk inside the Freak Geek ship and find a couple of crates. Again, another cool little thing you can do. Here's what a Trespasser pad looks like. In a Metropolis gameplay level, you can actually see a Trespasser area in the classic Ratchet and Clank 1 part of Metropolis. That was the bit where after you go to the vendor and you take a right-hand turn to go to Al's and you defeat the Blarg Trooper with his dogs, you can keep going forwards instead of left to find a couple of crates. That area is now lasered off with a Trespasser pad and a gold bolt, and you have to come back with the Trespasser, or arrive in the first place with the Trespasser if you visited Blackwater City and completed this section already. Here's the camera zooming into the display panel of the Trespasser Infiltrator, and this is consistent with Ratchet and Clank 2, where the camera would do the same thing for the original Infiltrator and the Electrolyzer as well, and the screen panel hints at a familiar gameplay mechanic. Yes indeed, folks, you now have to redirect the lasers like it was 2002, and this is very pleasing for me because I always found the Trespasser to be my favorite of the door hacking gadgets, so I'm very glad that this mechanic is returning, and with a much refreshed visual style. Here's a picture showing the laser having unlocked the panel. Just like before, however, the little locks can actually block each other. Ratchet has now opened the door. At the front, you can actually see that after completing a puzzle, the three ends, key inserts on the end of the gadget actually rotate around 360 degrees after Ratchet has completed a puzzle. And here, Ratchet has collected a very, very special holo card, a Rhino holo card. Yes, these are the new Rhino holo plans, everybody. But there's an issue with this one. Look at the picture of the Rhino. It is facing backwards and it is flopped on its side. So what's happened here is that the exhaust has been mistaken for the barrel of the gun, and the crossbar handle has been mistaken for the actual handle. So this render is actually, it's got the right Rhino, but it is completely and utterly wrong. So yeah, again, there's time to fix this. There is time to fix this before the game comes out, and hopefully not with a patch. Now, as for the Rhino cards themselves, there are 9 of them. So what Rhinos could there be? There's only 7 of them. What are the other 2? Well, the other 2 I would be guessing would be contained in the Rhino 2 section and would contain the 2 other super weapons that have appeared in the PS2 games, Going Commando's Zodiac and Deadlock's Harbinger. Other than that, you would have the Rhino and the Rhino 2, the Rhino, the Rhino 4, the Rhino 5, the Rhino 6, which was actually a mech suit. The Rhino 6 was a mech suit in All for One, and the Rhino 7 from Into the Nexus. So those are probably what the cards are. And here's a picture of B-Win having picked up the Rhino 2 holo card after winning it in the Gold Cup of the Hovercon Intergalactic Hoverboarding Competition. And what's cool about this picture is that this is actually the CG promotional render that was done for the Rhino 2 way back in 2003. I remember seeing this picture on the official Ratchet & Clank 2 website back in the day, so it is super cool that they are reusing all of the promotional art for these holo cards. It's a real nostalgia trip, and it is a fantastic history lesson for new fans. I'm super excited about this. Here Ratchet is making his way through the hallway back to the hoverboard plaza. And on the right hand side you can actually see that there is a merchandise stall displaying a McMarx 4000 and sort of a general merchandise room. So this appears to be Skid McMarx's sort of a Hall of Fame with merchandise store, I guess? And that is it for the in-depth. It's a long series of videos. I do apologize for it taking so long, but I am very glad to have done this in-depth. This is also the first time that I've done an in-depth in a pure video format, so yeah, let me know how this got on in the comments below this YouTube video, assuming that comments will always stay below YouTube videos in the future. And let me know if it's any better than when I uploaded the images on Imgur, which was my previous method of doing it. Me and Division 10 will be back in the next episode of the Lunar Observer. I'm not sure if I'll upload episode 13 in series before this in-depth or after, most likely before. So me and Division 10 will most likely be returning in episode 14 of the Lunar Observer. So we'll see you then in that episode. This is KBABZ signing off on the Lunar Observer, the fan-made podcast about fans discussing Insomniac games, the creators of Ratchet & Clank, Spyro the Dragon, and Resistance. See you later.